Where's my
Hello and welcome in to the next episode of Between the Hedges. Thank y'all for joining tonight, whether it's now or in the future. It's another great Sunday night after a victory last night, even though kind of,
Woo!
kind of looked hairy there for a long while. But how are y'all tonight?
Doing good? Can't complain one bit. It's another win against the Gators. Any win against the Gators is a good win. Doesn't matter if it's 1 point, 14 points, 30 points. It's still a good win. And you two young bucks are just so spoiled. I can see it all over your faces. You just want more. You're just spoiled to more.
Nah, we just have a distracted quarterback. That's all I gotta say.
That you may be right. You may be totally right. I was telling people that I was watching the game with about that very fact.
Yeah, you get
Homeboy needs to lock in the rest of the season and put the girl and all the distractions of fancy cars and TikToks and all that kind of stuff on the back burner for the next, couple of months.
Yeah, I've been trying to find a reason, an excuse, if you will. There it is. I think if he doesn't take accountability and do it, it may also need to be a conversation that Kirby has and says just, hey man, lock in. This is the stretch run. Like we're not going to be playing Florida every week with their quarterback going out who was actually, looking good in the first half
If
against
he
us.
if
And
he stayed in that game,
We'd still won.
I,
It would have been
don't
closer.
know.
We still would have won.
yeah,
I don't know.
we
I
would have
do
had to
because our defense was playing lights out the second half. Lights out.
also against a kid that couldn't move the ball.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we did it against Quinn Ewers the week before, so the game before. So, and we've done it against better quarterbacks than either one of them. When
Yeah.
our
I don't
defense
know.
gets locked in and they get going, it doesn't matter who we're playing.
But we can't be giving the other opposition extra possessions. Here
No,
for here
you
you
never
go.
want to. And I mean, Carson Beck owned up to his part after the game.
He always says that. He always owns up, but
No,
nothing's
he
changing
didn't.
from
Not
him.
like this. Not like this.
No, because he was asked a
And I,
very
I think you could see it on his face. That was bothering him a lot, the way things were progressing. Um, and I think one of the things that may be getting to him a little bit is that in the offseason he heard that he can't throw the ball down the field consistently.
Just
So,
kind of true.
no, it's not true, but he's heard that and it got to him. So he's pressing to make bigger plays. What you need your quarterback to do, especially in our system, is just if you got to take the
Smart.
check down and get a 4 yard positive play rather than a possible interception, take the 4 yards. You do that 3 times in a row, guess what? It's first down.
It's first down.
Keep going. And you're not turning the ball over. So he's just got to reassess and get back to making the positive plays. And even Kirby said, and granted, you guys can't argue with this. Kirby's forgotten more about football than any of us ever knew. He's like, we don't win that game without Carson back yesterday. And that's true. We don't. We
No,
didn't
I
have
mean,
anybody else on the bench that could do any better. And I don't want to hear anybody complain about it or say that they think that we could, because I guarantee you our coaches, if they felt that way, somebody else would have been in that game.
well, that would have been the game to make a change, right? Because it was
So,
clearly bothering Beck a lot. But the
I mean,
It
fact
was
that
in his head a lot.
he battled through, it says a lot about
right,
him.
right.
And
And
he's
he's
owning it.
lost.
So he's saying, okay, I've got to be better. I'm going to be better. And I trust that. I trust
Yeah,
that he's the right guy. And yes, we don't win any of our games this season without Carson back. It does
he's
feel
earned
like
enough.
we've put a lot on him, though. Like this year, we've
Mhm.
kind of changed from being a run first team to a pass first team. Like we've started saying, okay, we're going to let you throw the ball a lot. And that's what's going to happen and that's what Kirby said at halftime of the Texas game too. He's like, we're just gonna, this is just gonna happen. It's a chance that we're willing to take. Which,
Well, what
okay,
you just said, we're throwing the ball a lot more this year than we have in the previous 4 years. A lot more.
Yeah.
You know what happens when you throw the ball a lot more? You have chances of this happening where you're going to have more interceptions than you've seen. Balls get tipped. I mean, one of the interceptions, he was getting tackled when he threw the ball. I mean,
that I don't blame him for. The one that he stared
Yeah.
down and threw it right to the guy. I don't know
Yeah.
what the heck he saw in that play. That's a
yeah.
He
chuck it
Well, I
out
was
of
mean,
done.
we're
bounds.
not privy to those conversations. We don't know what he was trying to do or what somebody else may have not done that he was expecting them to do, or he may have just not seen, the
I
defenders.
I just
It could
don't
have
think
been blocked from his vision.
I don't
So
think he
you don't
saw it
know.
well.
But the fact is, he's got to play better. He knows that.
Just got to
But
go to the film room.
after the last 3 or 4 games, if we had anybody in behind him that we thought would give us a better chance to win the games coming forward, I guarantee you Kirby would have whoever else in there playing to win those
Yeah.
games. So it does us no good to sit here and badmouth him and come down on him. Now, granted, he knows he played bad. He knows he's had a rough stretch, probably the worst stretch that he's ever had playing football in his career.
Big
But you know
time.
what? We still won the games.
Yeah.
So
No, I
I know
just want
he
to,
can get better.
yeah.
I know he can do better. He knows he can do better. He's just got to start flipping that switch and executing better. And like I said, one of the easiest things to get him out of that is convincing him, look, just take the check down.
Or
Take
throw
the
it out of
easy
bounds.
play. Or, I mean,
Live to
shoot,
fight another.
sometimes it would be good to see him just take off and run for 2 yards and
Yeah.
slide.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it. That's not a turnover. That's two
Yeah.
yards. It gives you still got the ball and you got a chance on the next down to get the first down.
He's
So
just got to get in his mind like how he was last year, just making plays. This year he's just he's getting in his head too much and
he's trying to
hearing the stuff
force
that
it.
he's forcing too many things
So,
against all
but
these
anyway,
teams.
even after
But
all
I mean,
that, we're here talking about a win against
a
Florida.
win's a win. At the end of the day, win's a win. We won by 14, got the job done, thankfully, by our defense, as usual, because defense wins championships. Don't tell me otherwise. Um,
Bring on Ole Miss, baby.
bring on Ole Miss. Actually, I got some sad news about that. I won't be going to that game.
What?
Yeah, my boss said I couldn't have Saturday off.
Did you not ask for it in advance?
I did.
Because you told me like at the beginning of the season you were going, so that was what, 3 months ago? Two
Hmm.
months ago?
That was the plan.
What?
But I got my money back, so
It's kind of crappy.
Dang, that is crappy. I
yeah.
was I've
Yeah.
always wanted to go to an Ole Miss
But
game. That would have been
next
sweet.
year they come to our place, so I'm gonna have PTO for that game, so I can go to it. I'll get it as soon as I get my PTO for next year. I'm putting in a few Georgia games in, and I'm going to Georgia games next year.
Next year's home schedule's stacked. I mean, we're gonna have
I know.
Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss, at least those three. I mean, that's enough, but I mean, it's
Gonna
stacked because
gonna
it's
be
the
really,
reverse of this year.
Yeah,
really, really difficult to get tickets, really, really high prices next season too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
we'll figure it out.
All right. So, do we want to get into our results from our picks this week? Are
I'm
y'all ready
scared.
for this?
I'm
Who's
scared.
scared?
Me. I don't think
Huh?
I did good.
All right, let me share them.
I know how I did.
Well, you know it. Can y'all see it?
Yep.
There
Dang,
we
Dad.
go. Micah wins the week 4-2.
About freaking time.
He's still Mr. 1-5 though.
He is still Mr. 1-5.
Yeah, you won't see that again.
So
I've said
anyway,
that 3 weeks.
we all speaking of the UGA game, we all took UGA, and of course they did not cover. So
Sadly.
we started up with a loss right out the gate.
Hey, I got a point about this. You know, we picked the lineup on Tuesday, and the line always moves all the way up until kickoff.
Well,
I
sometimes
think
it's in your favor, sometimes it's not.
I think we should allow it to change up until Friday for the show, and then we put that line.
No.
Because on
Because
Friday it
that
would
could
have
change who
been
you pick.
no
That could
on Fr
change who you pick between Tuesday and Friday. So no, I'm not doing that
no,
extra work.
you pick who you're gonna pick and submit it like we do on Thursdays. But if the line changes more in your favor on Friday and
Well,
you're
what if it
talking,
changes against you and you would have picked the other way on Friday? That's what I'm saying. You got to pick a
well,
time to start, and that's what we're doing. We've done it this way the whole time. We're going to keep doing it this way.
well, it got down,
I
my
know.
point is it got down to below a 14-point spread, and we all would have gotten this one right.
Well, we all got it wrong. So either way, it cancels out.
I don't know, it just cost us right picks because I mean, based on the spread during the game,
I know what
right
you're
before
saying, but
kickoff
you
yesterday,
gotta
we were right.
call. You gotta start with something. So we get the lines, the games picked out on Tuesdays, and whatever those lines are, that's what we go with. It's it's fair forever for all three of us that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I get what you're saying though. I understand what you're saying. So I think we've discussed the Georgia game thoroughly to this point. So second game, we pick Ohio State favored by 3.5 at Penn State, and as usual, Penn State chokes. Another top matchup that they choke against. I swear, I've never seen a team do this so many times in my life.
So many times. They had 5 drives within the 5 yard line and they could not score.
So they lose 20-13. Ohio State covers the 3.5. The smart ones in this podcast chose Ohio State and got the win. Somebody went with Penn State, even though they always choke the big games. I don't know
You know,
why.
you know.
I'm
No,
just
No,
giving you a hard time.
I
It's
just,
all right.
I
I
don't
get
know,
it.
but
I get it. There were a bunch of crazy
Penn
plays in
State,
that game that could have gone either way, really. It
Penn
really, really
State.
could.
but
But it's
all of the games at halftime are a one score game between these two, and Ohio State just ends up coming out kind of like Georgia does to everybody and asserts their will, and they win the
finds a way to
game.
win.
I
Finds a way to
still
win.
don't. Uh, Ohio State is not that good. I really, I don't believe it. I don't think they're a good
Well, a
team.
lot of the country disagrees with you. A lot of, you know,
And that's because they don't like
coaches and
this was their most challenging game.
okay, and they won it.
Barely.
They
Uh, their
covered.
their most challenging game was going to Oregon, and they barely lost that game. They
Yeah,
kind
they
of
only lost that game about one
they
point.
they mismanaged the heck out of the last 2 minutes of that game,
Yeah, they
and blew
did.
it.
Or they could have come out of there with a win. And then how much better do they look? They'd be the number one team right now.
And everybody would be singing their praises.
Yeah, we
I just
wouldn't.
think
We'd get sick of hearing about them.
I think they're overrated.
Well, we may find out. I mean, they've got some. They still got to play Michigan, right?
That ain't a game. That's not going to be
All
a
right,
game.
it's a
It's
rival.
it's
It's like
always a
Georgia,
game.
Florida. You're sitting here saying Florida was going to beat us yesterday.
If Flagway was still in the game, possibly.
Okay, what if Ohio State loses their quarterback in that game,
Then they
or
probably
both of,
lose.
or if they lose their running backs between now and then, or their star wide receiver if he gets hurt?
That would make a difference. Their running backs,
Okay,
it wouldn't make a difference
all
because they
that
don't have
can.
a running game.
So, but anyway, it was an entertaining game. A lot of twists and turns and a lot of crazy plays. Um,
Stupid.
and once again, like I said, James Franklin chokes, Penn State chokes, and um, ends up,
James Franklin should be
losing the
gone.
game. So,
Did y'all see him going after Penn State fans after the game?
Good.
I didn't see it.
I would be going after him too. Like, coach, you
Well,
suck.
he was like, the clip was, you'll have to go look. It's everywhere. But he was like saying to this student that's a fan, he's like, if you're gonna be such a man, then tell me your name. Because he was like apparently coming after him, the kid was.
Mm,
So
gotcha.
Because
yeah,
he
that
doesn't
it's
do well. It was because I think he said something along the lines of like choking big games or something like that. And he's like,
Well, I'm
well,
sorry,
if you're
those are
going to
just
be,
facts. I mean, he's like 1 in 15 against top
yeah,
five teams or 10
you've been
teams
at
or
Penn
something like
State
that.
for this long and you're 1 in 15 against top 10 teams. Why are you still a coach at Penn State?
And I think in some of those games, I mean, I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. Maybe they haven't been favored, but they've had competitive teams. At least you'd think he would win more than once.
yeah, I think the one
But
time he won, they were a slight favorite. So
so, and then we get to Ole Miss and Arkansas, baby. Ole Miss decided to finally show up and play a game like we've been waiting for them to show up all
I
season
don't
and
know.
play.
I don't know why you picked Arkansas, Dad. You were smoking
Well,
crack.
because Arkansas was coming off a game where they looked like Ole Miss played yesterday. I
mhm.
mean, they're at home and they're getting over a touchdown. That seemed like, and if you look, that those two, I think they showed some of those stats in that game on the telecast on the broadcast that Arkansas has been giving Ole Miss fits recently in recent years. Ole Miss couldn't, hasn't beaten Arkansas much lately.
And the
Though
biggest
they're at
thing
home and they're getting 7.5 points, I thought, shoot, give me the home dog. I mean, and
was
plus Ole Miss
their
has been so helter skelter and Jekyll and Hyde, who, on the road especially, you don't know who's going to show up. But dadgum, they opened a can yesterday.
Yeah.
I hope they got all of that out of their system yesterday and they wasted a few of those touchdowns yesterday. And when we go down there this weekend, it's not that same team.
They open up a can of whoop ass.
I mean, they definitely bent them over their knee and spanked it a little bit.
Mhm.
I mean, they beat them. I mean, there wasn't any doubt. I
Arkansas
mean,
scored late to make it look a little better too. I mean,
And that still doesn't look better. It's still double their score.
it was a 40-point game at one time.
I know. It's still awful. The fact that, oof, golly.
And yeah, I'm
so
hoping they got
needless
it
to
out of their
say, Ole
system.
Miss covers, and as y'all can see, I went with Arkansas, so I lose that, and y'all got the W on that one for
Yeah.
that result. But jeez, yeah. I mean, if anybody knew that version of Ole Miss was going to show up, everybody would have picked Ole Miss. But you got
Yeah.
to understand, Ole Miss was not.
They're so back and forth. It's insane.
Yeah,
And if
I
that
mean,
trend
was it the Ole Miss
continues,
that croaked, against Kentucky going to show up? Or that's probably the best version of Ole Miss that you're going to see this season.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then
For sure.
we get our favorite team back on the schedule here. I heard y'all talking about it for Friday night when I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't on here. Michigan hosting Oregon, favored by 15 and
Sorry.
a half.
Sorry, team.
Yeah, they are a shadow of their old self, their national champion self from last year. They just aren't the same in
No,
any way,
they're off.
shape, or form.
They're no.
Um, so Oregon spanks them 38-17.
Rightfully
And the
so.
game wasn't even as close as that score, if you ask me.
No, not at all.
So we all win Oregon. We all win that. Anything to say about that game? Any comments?
Go Ducks.
Go
yeah,
Ducks.
go Ducks.
So the Ducks remain atop the polls after going to Michigan and destroying Michigan in the big house. That
Yeah.
place was pretty empty at the end of the game too. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, you don't see that.
What is there to support? That team is
Well, it's still
five
your
and four and
team.
five.
It's still your team.
Yeah, but if they're getting blown out by the number one team, why would you want to stay till the end of the game?
To watch the number one team, if nothing else. See how many
Nah,
points they're going to beat you by.
nah, go home, make some pizza rolls, enjoy some
Start taking a
Black Ops
shot for
6.
every time Oregon scores.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
If you did that for this weekend, there would have been a lot of shots because there's a lot of high scoring games.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have made it through this weekend.
Imagine the Old Miss game doing a shot for that.
That's crazy. And then one of the big surprise games. Can't understand what you're saying.
Go Cox.
Yeah, Matthew's now a Cock fan, I think.
It's my homeboys on that team, so I gotta support.
Yeah, no, I'm happy for Demetrius. I'm glad
He is
he's having a good
balling out.
year, and they are this close to being a one-loss team. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so close. They would
They
be
should
top
they
10
should be a
team,
one loss.
but they didn't win those games, and that counts. But they totally spanked Texas A&M.
They did
I mean,
from the start too.
I mean, it was nuts. 44-20. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's the second biggest win they've had at home against a top 10 team. Wasn't Texas A&M in the top 10?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. They were number 10. Yep.
The biggest one they had was a couple years ago against Tennessee when they put 63 on them, I think, that night with what's his face at quarterback, Rattler.
Yep.
But yeah, they just totally dominated. And what's crazy to me is if I'm not mistaken, they had another pick six overturned on a penalty or something that just
Yes.
was. I'm just like, how many times can that happen to one team in a season? I mean, it's
But
like they do
but
that almost every game.
but they turned it around and scored that same
Yeah, but their
thing.
pick sixes always get overturned. I mean, they've had like
And
seven of those this year where they've got pick sixes and they get overturned for a lot of them seem to be bogus calls.
yeah,
But anyway, they definitely took care of business, and now there's officially no undefeated SEC in conference play, undefeated team in conference play, because
no,
Texas
Georgia
A&M
is
was the
on
last
top.
one. Huh?
Georgia is on top in the conference right now.
Because we're 5-1, right?
Yep. Both us and Texas A&M are 5-1, but we're 7-1 overall. They're
And
seven
they've
and
lost
two.
twice. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That Notre Dame game may end up coming back and biting them in the
It's
butt.
biting them. No, they have to win out, and they have to beat Texas in order to make it to the SEC championship game now.
Tell you what, that's going to be one heck of a game at the end of the year. I do
That is,
believe.
that is 100%.
And
But I
then
love it.
the difference in the weeks contest, SMU Pitt.
I don't
Micah
want to
got
talk
it
about it.
right. We got it wrong, so he wins the week 4-2. And me and Matthew, steady Eddie at 3-3 and 27
Hey,
and 27 for the season.
hey, no, I'm nothing wrong with that. I had to come up for that, so I'm happy that I stayed even.
Yeah, and I try to tell y'all about SMU. When y'all both took Pitt, I was like, okay, either this is gonna
Hey,
be,
Pitt had been playing really, really good up
They
until
have,
but
yesterday. 48-25. I was just like, holy crap.
yeah, well, they had to go to Texas. I don't think Pitt has traveled that far this season, and they,
Well, they must have left their team back in Pittsburgh or something. I don't know.
I think
mhm.
so. And SMU and their quarterback just lit it up.
Needless to say that we're not very familiar with SMU or Pitt. I probably should have put the Vandy Auburn game on there instead.
Mm, yes.
That would have been a good one.
Let's see when I send those to y'all on Tuesdays if y'all see a game that y'all think I should have. Well, I
Well,
think we've had this conversation before.
Yeah.
If y'all got
this
other games that you want to add or replace or whatever, you need to speak up.
I
I
didn't
forgot.
speak up to replace this one because this is a top 25 matchup. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're
I
not
liked it.
really. I mean, it is what it is. But as you can see,
It was a
Micah
good
goes four
difference.
and two.
this one
It was the difference.
this one will decide who goes to the ACC championship between those two. I mean, it knocked Pitt
Mhm.
out
Yeah.
pretty much.
Now that Clemson lost too, which was
Oh
insane.
my gosh.
They got blown out too. Not I think it was the same score as the
At
Oregon
home,
Michigan game,
they
if I'm not
they
mistaken.
were, and it was at Clemson too.
Yeah,
It
which is
was
the crazier part.
it was 33 to 21, but yeah, a home loss like that does not look good for the Tigers.
No. So they're probably out of the
So,
ACC too.
Micah looks a little bit better overall for the season at 21 and 33, just a little bit better.
Just a little, not too
He's
much. Don't
primed
want to
for
get
another
his
one and
head.
a half, 1 in 5 week next week. So,
Not going to happen the rest of the way.
We'll see.
and I guess me and Matthew are just gonna nudge each other along right to the end.
Yep. So I'm looking at the standings for the ACC, and right now, if it were to be the last game, it would be Miami versus SMU in the SEC ACC championship game.
Woo, that's a barn burner, buddy. Can't wait to watch that one. I tell you what, Miami has to be one of the luckiest teams going right now.
100%. They were losing to Duke so bad, and then they score 53 points. I'm like, good grief.
Duke choked about as bad as Penn State in that game because they were up more than
No, I
10.
don't think it was that bad.
No, they were up more than 10.
I know they were up, but I don't think they choked worse than Penn State. Penn State was at least at home.
I, I
That makes it
mean,
worse.
but
But
Miami should have
crazy.
caught a couple losses already this season.
Yeah,
Like,
they've been very, very fortunate. Very fortunate. So that brings us to our rankings
Woohoo.
for this week 11 of the season. It's hard to believe we're already week 11.
It's insane.
Yep. Enjoy it while it lasts because it's almost over.
Yep.
There's some shakeup. Of course, we've had what Texas A&M lose, Clemson lose, Penn State lose. Am I forgetting anybody from last week
Not
that we
from
had
the
ranked?
Iowa State.
Iowa State.
Yeah, Iowa
Yep.
State.
And
So yeah, there's a little bit of a shakeup
that's
for
it.
everyone, each of us on our rankings. We both still have Oregon, Georgia 1-2. I honestly came this close, even though Oregon still won, bumped Georgia up.
No, I
But
wouldn't have. They had the better win.
Not after this
did
week's
they though?
performance.
Did they though?
They handled Michigan. We did not handle
Okay, they handled
business.
Michigan. We handled
Yeah.
Florida.
No,
Who's better, Florida
No.
or Michigan this year?
probably Michigan.
Probably
I don't know
Michigan.
about that.
Probably Michigan.
Especially if
If they were
DJ
to play right
Lagway's
now.
playing. If DJ Lagway's playing, I think Florida may give Michigan everything they want and then some. And Florida's defense, I tell you, they've played a lot better as the season's gone on, a lot better than what they did
They
start out the season.
but they
They
still got
have
a lot more of the gauntlet left.
Oh, I mean, I don't think they're going to win, and I mean they probably will beat Florida State, but I'm talking about the SEC. I don't think they're going to win any of them.
They
I mean, they've got Ole Miss,
Texas.
LSU, and Texas left.
Texas is next, then LSU, then Ole Miss, and then sorry, Florida State.
So
That's the remaining four.
all right. So I'm just
what I don't get about Matthews rankings, looking at them, is Penn State lost and he dropped them 4, and Texas A&M lost big and then he drops them 4. They're both still ranked in his top. I already had Penn State a little lower than what y'all did. Since I
The
think
reason
Ohio
why
State's one of the better teams, I didn't penalize them for losing on the rankings really that much.
the reason why I did that to keep Texas A&M in it, I still think they're a top 12 team regardless. Because they're still, even though they had a really bad loss, each team has a bad loss eventually, or they just have a bad game. But regardless of that, they're still going to turn it around, and who
What do you
knows? I
think?
mean, I mean, their coach is solid. He came from Duke. He, I mean,
Oh, they definitely
they
got a
were,
better coach than what they had previous.
yeah, anything's better than Jimbo Fisher. So, um, I still kept them in my top 12 just because they're still a solid team. Like that is still a team to watch out for. I wouldn't sleep on that team at all.
You see who creeped back up in my top 12? Did you notice?
Oh, Alabama.
Alabama.
Why?
Because they're
They don't deserve it.
okay. I have them ranked 11th. I think if you look at the polls
That
right now, that's
Vandy,
probably about right where they are. Is 11th.
They
that that
they are.
Vandy loss should never see them in the top 12.
Hey, everybody else disagrees with you.
What are they ranked right now?
I think
Alabama,
11.
Alabama's ranked 11 in the coaches and the AP poll.
I swear they
But
Alabama
they
pays them to be ranked.
And honestly, I could see Alabama beating.
They're gonna lose another game.
Let's see. From on my rankings from Miami down, I could see Alabama beating every one of those teams.
Not to see.
No, they lost to Tennessee, but if they played again, I think they'd probably beat them. That was at Tennessee. You got to remember that.
So
I'm just saying I
gotta
could
play the
see
game.
them beating them. I mean, if you can beat, Ohio State or Miami or Penn State or Notre Dame when they're ranked, 6, 7, 8, they're a decent team. They may not be national championship contender Alabama that we're used to for the last decade. They're still a good team.
They got
I'm
I'm
like
lucky
shocked I
against
got
us.
BYU and Indiana ranked above them, to be honest.
it's
There ain't
based
no
on
way in the
it's
world that I really think BYU or Indiana would stand a chance playing against Alabama.
but
Ours.
it's based off of this season and the performance to this point. Both of
Well, I mean, they're
those
my
teams,
rankings. I guess I'm talking myself out of where I have them ranked right now.
Because I mean, they barely beat us when we shouldn't have been in that game in the first place. They lose to Vandy in Vandy. They should have lost to South Carolina at home, but South Carolina choked. Um, they have not proven themselves this year at all, in my
I'm
opinion.
thinking I said before the season that I predicted
Would they
Alabama
beat Penn State?
goes 9-3, and I think they still go 9-3 this season.
Would they beat Penn State?
If
Yes,
Penn's
because Franklin doesn't know how to play big
Okay, well, you have
games.
Penn State ranked 7th, and you're saying Alabama would beat them. Would they beat Indiana?
No,
I don't think so. Not this year.
not
Y'all
this
are
year.
dreaming. Y'all are dreaming.
Not the
Dang,
way.
Okay.
Not the way.
dang.
Indiana
With
is well coached. They don't beat themselves. They're playing with house money against whoever they play.
Indiana still has not played anybody this year. Look at who they beat. And they won't play anybody this year.
they would compete they would compete with Alabama. With how they're
I
playing
didn't say
this year, they would
compete. I said, would they beat them?
they could compete and beat them with how Alabama has played this year. Alabama is not that good anymore. They're on the down slope.
Well, we're about to find out a lot about Indiana because they play Michigan and Ohio State in back-to-back weeks. You think that'll be two
Y'all
good
just
wins?
spent half the podcast crapping on Michigan.
Right. So, but do you think that playing those two blue bloods means anything? If they were to beat both of those teams, would you feel better
What
about
would you?
Indiana?
If they beat
Yeah.
Ohio State, yes, they'll get some of my respect. Not Michigan. You ain't gonna respect them for beating Michigan. You think Michigan's crap. Y'all
Okay.
both
Well,
just said
just
it when we
no
were
Ohio
talking about
State.
their game against Oregon this just a minute ago.
And they beat the brakes off Nebraska.
Nebraska sucks.
Not this year, they don't.
Yes, they do. They
They almost beat
suck.
Ohio State.
Nebraska should have beat Ohio
They should
State.
have beaten Ohio
Okay, but they
State.
still suck.
No.
No, they're a well coached team too. Like Matt
All right.
Rule is doing good.
Indiana
If
destroyed
Alabama
Washington as
played,
well.
if Alabama played Indiana's schedule right now up to this point, what would Alabama's record be?
That do- that's because they're not in a conference. But I'm just saying, with how Indiana is playing, regardless of how their schedule is,
If
they
Alabama
would.
played their schedule, what would their record be?
It would be
9 and
different.
0. 9
9
and
and
0.
0. Right.
But Alabama would find a way to lose to Ohio State.
If Indiana had played Alabama's schedule, what would Indiana's record be?
Well, they don't
Pull up
beat
Alabama's
Georgia.
schedule and go down it and pretend like you're Indiana. What would your record be?
They don't beat Georgia, but they have a good, just as good a shot against everybody else.
They wouldn't beat Georgia.
No.
I agree, they wouldn't. But there's way more teams than that they wouldn't have beat
What
off of that schedule.
what me and Mike are trying to say is Indiana this year, just this year alone. We're not worried
I'm
about
talking about
the
this year. If you
dynasty.
take if Indiana plays, have they played Wisconsin already?
Yeah.
What was the score?
Well, hold on. Let me go back to their schedule. Because I was just looking
I
at.
don't think they beat Georgia. I don't think they beat Vandy. I don't think they beat South Carolina. I don't think they beat Tennessee.
No, they don't. They don't play Wisconsin this year.
Okay, they haven't played them yet. I don't know if they beat Wisconsin, but I guarantee. Let's see, Georgia, Vandy, South Carolina, Tennessee. That's 4 losses already, and that doesn't count playing LSU, Oklahoma, Auburn.
They would beat
Indiana right now
Oklahoma and
is a paper
Auburn,
tiger. They're
and
pa- they're they're a paper tiger.
they would beat Vandy
Just
too.
they've lucked out on their schedule this year with these bigger
And
conferences, and they're skipping all the big boys in the Big Ten this year.
so why do you have them above Alabama if you are
That's what I'm
saying
saying.
this?
I had a
They're
brain
not.
fart.
They're not skipping all the big boys.
I
They've
guess
played
I did
Michigan
that
and
just
Ohio State
basically
back to back
because of the
weeks.
record more than anything else. Now that I've talked it out and think about it more, I probably won't even have them ranked next week.
They play Michigan and Ohio State back to back weeks. They beat Nebraska. They beat Washington. And it's not like they're just beating teams. They're beating the brakes off of them. If they're bad teams and it's a soft
I
schedule,
give
I
them
mean
credit. They are beating the brakes off of them. I give you that.
they're
But
They're
they're
I
they're
pulling.
still don't
more
think they're
they're more consistent than Georgia's been all season. I'll
okay.
say
They're
that.
consistent. They're consistent against future teams. If
But they're
Georgia played Indiana's schedule, Georgia would look like world beaters too.
yes, but they've Georgia's shown this inconsistency that Indiana hasn't.
It might be because of who Georgia's played. Georgia's had the incredible strength of
Tough.
schedule.
Mhm.
I mean, and they've
We've had
still
to
Yes.
got
prove
one of the
ourselves.
toughest ones the remaining of the season too.
Yes.
But
So, I
I
mean,
agree.
if
regard,
Indiana played Georgia's schedule, they'd have at least 4 losses.
I
At
don't think they
least.
would win. They would have won a game.
They may not even be bowl eligible.
But regardless,
It's
I
just something to
mean,
think about. Don't
it's
mean to get
just
on the Indiana tangent. They're not worth it to me right now. But I
uh,
just thought it was interesting because y'all were talking about me putting Alabama in. I mean,
they haven't. eh, Alabama doesn't deserve
straight up, who would win, Alabama or Indiana, Matthew? Come on.
right now.
This year,
With,
who's going to win, Alabama or Indiana? Even in
give
the
me
neutral
Indiana.
site.
Give me
Oh my
Indiana.
gosh. Okay.
Because they lost against Vandy. Okay, at Vandy, they struggled against South Carolina at home, mind you, and that was for Nick Saban's celebration of that being his field, and they almost lost that game.
Mhm.
They should have lost to us at home at their place, but they got lucky. because it's Alabama. And we shouldn't have been in that game afterwards. Then Alabama still has a, they might lose. They'll probably lose to LSU
Yeah, I think
as
I'm
well.
taking it. I think I'm taking LSU. That'll be their third loss of the
I'm
season.
I'm taking LSU, and they might even lose to Auburn with how they've been playing. You never know. Like
Matthew, were
Alabama,
you smoking crack with your friends before the show again?
no.
I think you
The
were.
the
I
way
think
that
you were
you talked
smoking
about
crack before the
rivalry
show.
games, you said anything can happen.
You said
I
that
think
about
you were
Georgia,
smoking
Florida.
crack,
Anything can
Matthew.
happen.
Just saying
Well,
no to
you said
drugs, Matthew.
regardless, Alabama
Just say no
is
to
not
drugs, Matthew.
Alabama's not that team anymore.
I know they're not that team. I'm just saying they're a top 10 team, top 11 team,
No,
top 12 team, whatever. That's all I
no, they're
said.
not.
The good thing is we do have rankings coming out on Tuesday, and I want to see what the committee thinks about everything that we're talking about.
Oh,
Yeah, I do too. I
they're
think
gonna
it's gonna
rank
be
them.
interesting.
The committee's gonna rank them in the top 12 because it's Alabama. They're the team. They're gonna have them in the top 12, and it's gonna be stupid.
There's something else that's significant going on Tuesday. I forget what it is, though.
Yeah, yeah, we've got an election as well.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
That's not. Eh.
So
Yeah, but
who do you think
Bad.
the committee's gonna rank number one?
Oregon.
yeah, I think they're just going to do
Oregon. It's gonna be Oregon, Georgia Tech. Oregon, Georgia,
Texas. You almost
and
had it right.
no,
I.
it's going to be Oregon, Georgia, Ohio
It's gonna be
State.
Ohio State.
We'll see.
That's the top three, and then Miami,
I've got the
We'll
top four
see.
right. Y'all, you heard it here first.
Okay, we'll see.
and then Texas at 5.
Y'all take a
Yeah,
picture
we'll see.
of these rankings, and mine will look the closest to the committees.
We'll see.
Book it.
We'll see.
But you're for damn sure. I mean, hey, if Alabama gets in the top 12 of the college playoff rankings, I'm gonna find where the committee works at, and no, I don't know what I'm gonna do. It's gonna be stupid
You ain't gonna
because
do
they do not.
squat. You're just gonna go back and
They
smoke crack with your friends again.
they don't deserve to be in the top 12 at all.
In your opinion,
Other other
other
people will agree.
people disagree.
No, you're the only one that disagrees.
Obviously not.
Yeah,
The two polls that are out disagree with you,
that doesn't matter anymore. The college playoff
and the
ranking
poll
matters now.
Tuesday will disagree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll probably have them
We'll
in
see.
there till they lose another game.
We'll
Until they
see.
lose to LSU this week.
Is that this week?
Yes.
Hmm.
It's a night game
That game's the
at
reason
LSU.
that Georgia Ole Miss isn't a night game.
Mm-hmm. All thanks to
Gotcha.
LSU because LSU gets every old night game.
No, it's Alabama. That's an Alabama prejudice thing.
It's both. It's both. Everybody likes watching LSU at night because the place is bonkers, and it will be against Alabama.
Go
And
Tigers.
LSU, go Tigers. That's all I gotta say. Knock Alabama out of this world.
So this
Well,
week, I see we got Miami playing at Georgia Tech.
Go Tech.
Florida, like we said, is going to Texas. Georgia's going to Ole Miss. Michigan's going to Indiana.
Go Indiana. All the team games that you're
South
saying right now
Carolina's
should be in our
going to
picks.
Vandy.
Put
Who
that
are
in
you
the
going to pick in
picks.
that one, Matthew? South Carolina's going to Vandy.
Give me South Carolina. They're playing better.
Uh,
They're
you
they're
got
playing they're
Florida
playing
State
with
going to
fire.
Notre Dame. You got Alabama going to LSU.
There's a lot of good games this week.
You got BYU going to Utah.
Give me Utah.
That will be an upset if that happens.
I mean,
So
Utah just
anyway,
beat
it was
Utah.
another.
Didn't Utah beat Kansas State? Right? Kansas State just lost, right?
They did. I was trying to see to who.
Wasn't it Utah?
Mm, Houston.
Ah, Houston. Close enough.
Yeah, and that makes the Big 12
Anyway,
race even easier or even closer, like not definitely not what everybody thought preseason in the Big 12.
All right.
It's going
or
to
the
be,
ACC for that matter.
yeah, both are going to be like just wild, not blue blood teams in that conference.
Oh,
All right. Well, I guess we rambled on enough for one show, right? It's another good weekend of games, and we got another good slate of games coming up this weekend too. I hate that Matthew's not going to get to go to the Georgia game. That would have been sweet.
I don't know. I was really hoping, but talked to my boss about it yesterday. It's like, yeah, you can't have Saturday off. I was like,
We'll call in sick.
I
It,
can't.
I feel like I'm not going to be there either way.
My job could be on the line if I did that.
Yeah, you keep your job, son. Don't be dumb.
So,
So anyway, we got a bunch of good
that's,
games to look forward to this week. I think it's going to be a interesting challenge for Georgia this weekend, especially going down to Ole Miss. If they play like they did last week. Now, granted, they weren't playing against Georgia's defense last week.
no,
They will be this
but
week.
we
Well,
just gotta
if they
go
continue
ahead.
the back and forth trend like they are, it's that bodes well for us. So
Yeah.
Good week, bad week, good week, bad week.
hmm And then also
Yeah,
we
let's
just
not
gotta,
lay our hopes on that. Let's just hope.
yeah.
Let's just rest on the fact that our guys are going to be locked in for a. What are they ranked now? Are they top 10 now after the carnage of last weekend?
no,
No, they're like 15 or something.
hold on. I got you. Yeah, they're 16.
Just behind Texas A&M.
They're 12 in the coaches poll.
Yeah, that's a big
So a little
difference.
discrepancy there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be a good game. It'll be a good matchup. Um, and I just, I'm looking forward to Georgia coming back home with the victory.
Yeah. And we do appreciate, everybody tuning in now and in the future, like y'all have been. We really appreciate that. Give us a like. If you like what you've heard, what you've seen, definitely comment. We always appreciate that. We will respond when we see them, whether it's now on a live or in the future. Um, Definitely subscribe because you don't know. Subscribe and turn on notifications because we could be going on at a time that you don't expect. So, and as always, please share with 5 or 10 of your friends. We'd love to reach more people and just have a bigger audience to be in front of and just make it a little bit more fun. But thank you all for tuning in tonight. And as always, Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.